Welcome to Phrasal Verb Practice. This is the place to learn real English, one phrasal verb at a time. My name is Marissa, and I'll walk you through this learning journey. Hi, team. I hope everyone's having a good day. Let's learn and practice the phrasal verb, get along. So, let's start with what get along usually means when people use it in real life. Most of the time, we use get along to talk about relationships. When we say get along, we mean having a good, friendly relationship with someone. For example, I get along well with my coworkers. She doesn't really get along with her neighbor. Do you get along with your boss? Now, there's another common way we use get along. We also use get along to talk about how someone is managing or doing in a situation. In this case, get along means handling things or making progress, even if it's not perfect. For example, how are you getting along at your new job? He's getting along fine in his new city. So the idea behind get along is pretty simple. It's about things going smoothly. That can be with people or with life situations in general. Now, just to give you a quick sense of how get along sounds in other languages. In Spanish, it's like llevarse bien or arreglárselas. In French, people say bien s'entendre or se débrouiller. In Portuguese, it's dar-se bem. In Italian, andare d'accordo. In German, sich gut verstehen. In Japanese, umaku yatte iku. And in Chinese, sang chu de hao, or guo de chu. So, when do people usually use get along? People use get along when they talk about relationships. They use it when they describe teamwork or family life. They use it to ask how someone is doing in a new situation. They also use get along when talking about adapting to change or daily challenges. Let's look at a few examples to recap. I get along really well with my team. They don't get along very well. How are you getting along at school? She's getting along just fine on her own. It's easier to work together when people get along. Now let's talk about how get along works grammatically. Get along is an inseparable phrasal verb. That means the verb and the particle stay together. We don't split them. So we say, I get along with my coworkers. She gets along with her family. We don't say, I get my coworkers along. Typical structure: get along with and person. Get along, no object for situations. Most of the time, you'll hear get along followed by with when we talk about people. And sometimes, get along appears alone when we talk about situations. Now, let's practice. First, you're going to listen to a text about everyday life. Then you'll hear another one in a professional or office setting. Are you ready? Let's start. Last year, I moved into a small apartment with 2 roommates I didn't know very well. At first, I wasn't sure if we would get along. We were all different schedules, different habits, different tastes. The first few weeks were quiet, and everyone stayed in their own space, just trying to get along without problems. Over time, things started to feel easier. We talked more in the kitchen, shared food, and laughed about small things. I realized that we didn't have to be best friends to get along. We just needed respect and a little patience. Once we understood that, it became much easier to get along at home. At the same time, my sister was dealing with something similar. She had just started a new class and was nervous about the people there. She called me one night and asked if I thought she would get along with her classmates. I told her it usually takes time and that most people eventually get along once they feel more comfortable. A few weeks later, she called again, sounding happier. She said she was starting to get along really well with a few people and felt more relaxed going to class. Hearing that reminded me how important it is to give things time. Even in daily life, I ask myself how I'm getting along. Some days are smooth, and some days feel messy. When things don't go as planned, I remind myself that it's okay. I'm still getting along, even if it's not perfect. On weekends, I visit my parents, and we all try to get along during long conversations at the table. We don't always agree, but we listen. That's how we get along as a family. In the end, life feels lighter when you focus less on perfection and more on learning how to get along with people and with situations as they come. Great, that was the first text. How many times did you hear the phrasal verb of the day? Now, let's move on to the second text. When I joined the team, one of my biggest concerns was whether I would get along with everyone. The group was already established, and I was the new person trying to fit in. During the first week, I focused on listening and understanding how things worked so I could get along without creating tension. In meetings, I noticed how important it was to stay respectful, even when opinions were different. When people feel heard, it's much easier to get along. I made an effort to ask questions and show interest in others' ideas, and little by little, it helped me get along better with the team. There was one project where deadlines were tight and stress levels were high. That's usually when relationships get tested. Still, we managed to get along by being clear about responsibilities and helping each other when someone fell behind. Even simple things, like checking in or offering support, made it easier to get along during busy days. I also learned that get along isn't only about people. Sometimes it's about situations. On weeks when tasks pile up and priorities change, I ask myself how well I'm getting along with the workload. Staying organized and flexible helps me get along with pressure instead of fighting it. Emails and messages can also affect how teams get along. I try to keep my communication clear and calm, especially when something goes wrong. A thoughtful message can help everyone get along and avoid misunderstandings. Over time, I noticed that teams that get along tend to work more smoothly. Projects move faster, meetings feel lighter, and problems get solved more easily. It doesn't mean everyone agrees all the time. It just means people know how to get along professionally. By the end of the day, when I feel like I get along with my coworkers and with the work itself, I know it's been a good day. In the workplace, learning how to get along makes everything feel more manageable and a lot more human. Great, that was the second text, and that's all for today. Thank you so much for following this channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.